Hello everyone. So welcome to third class of free crash course for competitive exams held by VIRAT Hindustan SANGHAM in association with Manifest IAS Bengaluru. So this program is inspired by Dr. SWAMY, and the first inauguration was done on 28 January 2022. So this will be held telecasted online on these particular YouTube channels. You can watch it online on YouTube channel of VIRAT Hindustan SANGHAM. This is the link, and also YouTube channel of Udaya Karnataka. Here is the link. And this program is convened by Shri Ravishankar sir, who is the state educational convener of VIRAT Hindustan SANGHAM Karnataka branch, and also the president of Good Neighbors India NGO. So I am the chief mentor of your program, DHANUSH Kumar. So I have been training civil servant training aspirants for competitive exams from past 5 years. Okay. So we are doing the program in association with Udaya News Karnataka and also Manifest IAS Bengaluru. So here is the details of the program. So as every day, this is I'll display the timetable with syllabus. So first we have started with polity. Later on we'll move to history, then economy, geography, environment, current affairs, and it goes on till April 1st, 2022. So what to expect out of these classes and how to make best use of this course, both for veterans and freshers. So veterans can use this program as a refresher course. So entire preliminary syllabus of UPSC Civil Service exam will be revised once. So you can just watch the videos daily 2 hours and your entire syllabus will be revised, and freshers will get a hold of the basics of the syllabus. So I am going to discuss the concepts, basically all the concepts which you are supposed to study for the competitive exams. So you can join the Telegram channel of VHS Education Forum. So here is the link, and also you can join by scanning this QR code. Okay. So let's begin the classes. So here is the details of the classes for next 10 days, that is next 8 days. So we are going to end polity on 6th of February 2022, and today we are going to start with basic structure and emergency and other provisions of the Indian polity. So what is the source for this for your polity module? It is Lakshmi Kant, one and only source. If you study this book, definitely questions are going to come out of it. So moving to the first concept of today's class, basic structure of the Constitution. So what do you mean by basic structure? Basic means something which is very fundamental to the Constitution, without which the Constitution will collapse. So was there any basic structure concept in the original Constitution? Was there any basic structure concept? No. So it is a judicial innovation. So what used to happen when the Constitution was enforced and enacted after January 26, 1950, that is our Republic Day, this government used to use the Parliament to amend the Constitution frequently. So many amendments were carried out, and there was a fear in the judicial circles that the constitution itself will be repealed. So the essence of the constitution will be destroyed. So what the judiciary did? So the judiciary in the Keshwananda Bharti case, 1973. Who is Keshwananda Bharti? So the seer who passed away recently in 2021. So high probability of question coming out of Keshwananda Bharti case. Sorry, here it has been written as 1967. It is actually 1973. So 1973, April 24 is when the judgment of State of Kerala versus Keshwananda Bharti was pronounced by Supreme Court. Okay. So how did this emerge? We are going to look into it. So first, basically what happened? So in Shankari Prasad case, emergence of basic structure, we are going to discuss that. So in Shankari Prasad case, when was this case held? It was held in 1951. In Shankari Prasad case, the Supreme Court said the constitution which curtailed the right to property was some amendments to the constitution which curtailed the right to property was, where is right to property? It was there in Article 31. So however, this was curtailed by the Parliament and it was challenged in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, yes, the Parliament can amend the constitution and curtail even the fundamental rights in Shankari Prasad case. However, this judgment was challenged in Champakam Dorairajan case. So there also a similar judgment was pronounced by the Supreme Court. Later on in Golaknath case. Golaknath case, what happened? 1967. Very important case with respect to the emergence of basic structure. In Golaknath case, the Supreme Court held, no, you cannot amend the constitution. So Article 13, which includes the concept of law. Article 13, which includes the concept of law, doesn't include Constitutional Amendment Act. So what does Article 13 say? It says any law which is in conflict with the Constitution stands invalid. So Supreme Court said this any law also, so the government said this any law will also include doesn't include the Constitutional Amendment Act. So however, in Golaknath case, what the Supreme Court said, this the law, the concept of law, that is whatever laws promulgated by or enacted by the Parliament also includes the Constitutional Amendment Act. Thereby, so amendment power was restricted in Golaknath case. However, this was to challenge this Supreme Court, the government enacted many laws via Parliament. So it enacted many Constitutional Amendment Acts saying that the power of Parliament to amend the Constitution is unlimited. So however, in Keshwananda Bharti case, 1973, very important case. So high probability of question this year in various exams, especially when the seer has died last year. So till now it has not been asked in any exam in the recent past. So but very important in the present context. So in Keshwananda Bharti case, what did the court said? Yes, the constitution can be amended by the Parliament. However, it gave a caveat. What did it say? No, it cannot. The basic structure, that is the basic elements, cannot be amended. So you cannot take away the essence of the constitution by amendment. So what is this essence? We are going to discuss in the class in some time. So the essence of the constitution are derived from various judgments of the Supreme Court over time. Okay. So in the Keshwananda Bharti case, one particular statement was used by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, so constitution, this Parliament has very limited power of amendment. So using this limited power, you cannot change the very article, that is Article 368, which is used for amendment. You cannot change the very article to bestow upon yourself, to give to yourself unlimited power. So the very limited power of amendment cannot be used to give yourself an unlimited power of amendment. So that is what was said by Keswananda Bharati case, and here basic structure concept was introduced. Next comes Indira Gandhi Nehru case. So this case is not so important. So it is important with respect to the imposition of emergency. Here also the basic structure concept was affirmed. Affirmed means yes, it is held valid by the Supreme Court. Okay, moving further. So what are the elements of the basic structure? I mentioned that I am going to tell you what are the basic elements of the basic structure. So here are few of the basic elements. The basic element goes like Supreme Court of the Constitution. So its power cannot be amended by the or curtailed by the Parliament. Next comes sovereignty and democratic character of the Indian nation, that cannot be changed. Then comes secular character of the Constitution. So you cannot do away with secularism in India. And federal character, unity and integrity, welfare state, freedom and dignity, judicial review, rule of law, and free and fair elections. There are so many elements in the basic structure given by the Supreme Court via its various orders. So should this basic structure concept be made into a law? So because till now it depends on the Supreme Court. So it depends on the will of the Supreme Court to decide what is the basic structure, what constitutes the basic structure. However, so this leads to disproportionate imbalance of power. It is a threat to separation of power. Who gave the concept of separation power? It was given by Montesquieu. So this usurping of power by Supreme Court on the in detailing this basic structure is a disproportionate share of power by the Supreme Court. Hence, it has to be brought into a law. Okay. So, how did the concept of basic structure evolve over time? We are going to discuss briefly. So, it started with Keswananda Bharati case in 1973, and it was affirmed by Indira Gandhi Nehru case in 1975. And in Minerva Mills case, yesterday I told Minerva Mills case with respect to balance of importance between fundamental rights and also directive principles of state policy. What did the court say? The court said both fundamental rights and DPSP are important elements of the Constitution. That was what said by the Supreme Court in Minerva Mills case 1980. So, in the Keswananda Bharati case, supremacy of the Constitution, separation of power, republic character of the Indian democracy, and secular character of Constitution was said. And in Indira Gandhi Nehru case, it was said that equality of status and opportunity of individual, and secularism and freedom of conscience and religion was said as elements of basic structure. Likewise, the concept has evolved over time. Over Minerva Mills case, Kyoto Alone case deals with what? It deals with defection, anti-defection law. So nowadays there is lot of defection from going from one party to another party for the sake of material benefits, cheating the democracy. Okay, so it was even SR Bommai case is important, IR Coelho case 2007, and many other cases are important with respect to evolution of basic structure. Okay, this is all about the concept of basic structure. Next, we will move towards parliamentary system. So India follows a parliamentary system of government, parliamentary system of state. So we do not follow the presidential system. Where all presidential system is followed, it is followed in United States of America, it is followed in France, it is followed in Argentina, it is followed in Venezuela, it is followed in Germany doesn't follow president, they follow a chancellor system. Even China follows a presidential type of government. So prime minister form of government is followed in India, Australia, Britain, Canada. Basically all the Commonwealth countries follow basically the parliamentary system. However, China follows a semi-presidential system. Even Russia follows a different form of presidential system. So we are talking about parliamentary system. So what is a parliamentary system? So here we the people of the nation constitute or send representatives to the parliament who rule or formulate laws. They formulate the laws on our behalf, and that law comes into force. Basically it's the rule or will of the people directed, exercised indirectly. They exercise the rule indirectly. Okay. What are the features of the parliamentary system? Features. What are the features? We have nominal and real executive. What do you mean by nominal and real executive? Nominal means the post of president. So the seat of president in India is a nominal executive, which means he doesn't exercise any real power. However, all the power is shown on the face value, it is shown to be lying in the office of president. However, real power is exercised by whom? The prime minister. Okay. So prime minister is the real executive. President is the nominal executive. Hope this concept is clear to all of you. So next comes majority party rule. So we have now which government is in power? So they have the majority in that they come from a party which has a majority. What do you mean by majority? Suppose the parliament has 550 seats if the halfway is 275. So if the ruling government crosses the barrier of 275, then that particular party is going to come to power. However, in India's democracy, right now we have 545 seats in the parliament. So the halfway mark is 272. That is why all these parties aim for 272 plus seats in the parliament in order to achieve majority and take power. Next we have, next feature is the government is collectively responsible to the parliament. What do you mean by collective responsibility? Responsibility means they are answerable to the parliament. If the parliament exercises no confidence motion and if it is passed by the parliament, the government has to resign. So their power, the very existence of the government depends on the will of the parliament. So that is what meant by collective responsibility. Next comes the concept of political homogeneity. So all the ministers are belonging to the same party or at the max to the same coalition. Next comes double membership. Double membership means, so these ministers are members of the government as well as the parliament. That is what is meant by double membership. Next comes leadership of the parliament. So leadership of the prime minister. In the parliamentary system, the prime minister, who is the leader of the house in Lok Sabha? It is the prime minister if he belongs to that particular house. So during Manmohan Singh sir's tenure, Dr. Manmohan Singh sir's tenure, he was the member of Rajya Sabha. So he was a leader of Rajya Sabha. So the leader of Lok Sabha used to be Pranab Mukherjee ji, our former president. So he used to be the leader of the house. So the prime minister, in whichever house he is there, so he becomes the leader of that particular house. Okay. Next comes dissolution of lower house. The lower house gets dissolved when the party, the government loses majority. Last comes the concept of, last feature is secrecy. So this parliament holds, the government has the concept of secrecy. The ministers operate or adhere to the principle of secrecy in its operation. They don't divulge the secret information of day-to-day conductance of the government. So next comes the features of presidential government. Though we are not a presidential government, studying it in comparison with parliament helps us understand the concept of parliamentary democracy better. So what are the features of presidential government? Presidential government, so we will take the example of America, that is United States. There is the president is the head of the state and head of the government as well. Here I said the president is the nominal executive. Nominal executive is the real executive. However, in the case of United States of America president, he is both the nominal and real executive. He is the de jure and de facto executive. What is meant by de jure and de facto? Go and Google. Because the time is limited, I cannot explain all the concepts. Next comes the president is elected by electoral college. So the president in United States doesn't come from the Congress, that is the local parliament there. So there the concept of kitchen cabinet is there. We have a full-fledged cabinet there. They have a kitchen cabinet. So the members of which are the various secretaries. So the president and his secretaries are not responsible to the Congress. I already told that. The president cannot dissolve the house. So the president, the prime minister in India can dissolve the house by asking the president to dissolve the house, and the Lok Sabha thereby stands dissolved if the president dissolves the house based on the recommendation of the prime minister. However, in USA system, the president cannot dissolve the house. He cannot dissolve the house. He cannot ask the Congress speaker or any other authority to dissolve the house. He doesn't have any power within that system. So next comes, these are the few of the features of presidential system. So what are the merits and demerits of parliamentary system? So basically we have harmony between legislature and executive. So whatever the laws which the government wants, they can pass it to the parliament. So there is no friction. However, in USA, Congress and between Congress and president, there was a lot of friction, and the impeachment was done during the tenure of Donald Trump. So we have the habit of saying Shri with respect to in Indian culture. So we can say it for Donald Trump also, Shri Donald Trump. Okay. Next comes, in the next merit is, here we have parliamentary system, we have responsible government. I already told what is responsible government. So here there is no question of despotism. Despotism means no autarky by the leader. He has to respect the authority of the parliament, because his government, his or her government is responsible to the parliament. He cannot carry out the rule according to his or her whims and fancies. So he or she has a checks and balance in the form of parliament, because every 3 to 4 months they have to face the parliamentary session. That is why all the prime ministers and ministers get very unsettled or scared whenever session comes, because they have to face the chairs, shirts and thrusting into the well of the opposition, shouting everything, throwing of papers. So all this they have to face in the parliament. That is why they get very unsettled whenever session is in the offing. Okay. So what are the demerits of this parliamentary system? Unstable government. During the coalition era, there was frequent change of governments, especially in the 1995 time. There was, within a span of 3 years, there was 3 prime ministers, I.K. Gujral, Deve Gowda, and one more person, Charan Singh. So not Charan Singh, sorry, Deve Gowda, I.K. Gujral, and one more, Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So 3 persons were changed within a span of very short period. Okay. No continuity in policies. So one government comes and they form a policy. Next government comes, they are going to change a policy. Like the new BJP government abolished the Planning Commission and established the Niti Aayog after 2014. So dictatorship of the cabinet. So here in parliamentary system, the autarky of the presidential system shifts to the cabinet. Cabinet can do anything. So it is said that British Prime Minister or cabinet can do anything except making a man into woman and making a woman into man. Okay. Next, and also this is against the concept of separation of powers, because executive and legislature are merged. Only judiciary is separate. However, in United States of America, we see a clear separation of power between the three organs of the state. State, what is state? I told in Article 12. So, why did we adopt the parliamentary system? The reason for adoption. So, we could have adopted presidential system, we could have adopted semi-presidential system. However, we chose to adopt the parliamentary system. So, why did we adopt it? Because we had a familiarity. 1935 Act was a similar act which had elements of parliamentary form of government in it. So 1935 Act was running during independence. So why should we go and adopt some other system? Let us continue the same thing. So in parliamentary system, there is more responsibility. After independence, there was a tussle between the concepts of stability and responsibility. Stability means presidential system gives more stability. There won't be frequent change of the government. However, in parliamentary system, though due to coalition politics and non-attainment of majority, there is less element of stability. However, it gives more responsibility. The government is responsible for the parliament. You already know what is responsibility. So, also during the time of independence, we wanted to avoid the tussle between parliament, legislature and executive. That was also a reason why we adopted the concept of parliamentary system. Also, we had vivid variety of people in India, multiple sections, multiple castes, multiple region, multiple races. So, we have wanted representation for everyone in the parliament. So that is why we adopted parliamentary system. In presidential system, the government, there is no wider representation. Okay. So now we are going to discuss what is the difference with the presidential system. That is, I have already told you, but I am going to refresh it once again. Here we have dual executive, prime minister and president. So first I am going to tell the feature concepts of the parliamentary system. Next, presidential system. In parliamentary system, dual executive, prime minister, president. There only single executive. Here parliamentary system, majority party rule. So there is no concept of majority. President is elected separately. Here parliamentary system, collective responsibility. There no responsibility. Here political homogeneity. So there political homogeneity may not be there. So here parliamentary system, leadership of prime minister, there leadership of the president. Likewise, there are many differences with the presidential system. It is given in Lakshmikant, so you can have a look at it. So distinction between Indian and British model. We know we were ruled by the British for over 200 years. 200 or how many years? So they came first in the 1600s. East India Company was first formed in 1600. However, regulation of Indian affairs starts with 1773 Regulating Act. Already told the features of Regulation Act during our first class. Okay. So, so even though we were inspired by the British, so we do not follow the British model blindly. We have separate system. India has a republican system. Our president doesn't have a cannot appoint his or her children as the next president. So there is no concept of family politics in India when it comes to the post of office, post of president. I am not talking about the political parties. Okay. Next, however, in the Britain, the crown. So the crown is always the same family member gets appointed as the head of the crown. So who is the present head of the crown? Queen Elizabeth. What is the number? Elizabeth 2 or 3? Just find out. So in Britain there is sovereignty of parliament. So the parliament's power is unlimited because Britain doesn't have a written constitution. So their constitution is unwritten. However, our parliament is not sovereign. Who is sovereign in India? Constitution itself is sovereign. Okay. Next comes, so in Britain the prime minister should always come from Lok Sabha. However, in India he or she can also come from Rajya Sabha. So what is the example? It is Dr. Manmohan Singh, who came from Rajya Sabha. From which constituency? From which state? Maybe from Assam, I am not sure. Okay. Federal system. Next we are going to discuss the concept of federal system. So I already said in Article 1, India is called a union of states. So we are not called a federation of states. What do you mean by union of states? So all the states, 28 states and 8 union territories come together to form a union of states. So however also call ourselves a federation, federal form of government. So what is the difference between federal form of government and unitary government? So basically what is meant by federation? A federation means there are 2 levels of government, 2 or more levels of government. So in India the levels of government is, one is the union government, second is the state governments. So there is clear division of power between union government and the state government, by which what is where do we see this division? It is seen in 7th schedule, union list, state list and concurrent list. So I clearly specified what is the meaning of federation. So there are many federations, like in Switzerland it is a federation, Canada is a federation. Okay. So even United States is a federation. Okay. So what is the difference between federal and unitary government? So we are going to have a brief look into it. So in federation there is dual government. I already said what is dual government. Unitary system, only single government. Or give one example of unitary form of government. China or France is a form of unitary form of government. Okay. In federation there is always a written constitution to specify the clear separation of power. However, in unitary form of government the constitution may be written or unwritten. However, in dual government constitution is always written. Written means constitution, there will be a proper book where constitution is written down. Next comes the division of power. So national and regional government, there is always a division of power. However, in unitary government there is no division of power. All the power is concentrated in the union government. Okay. Next, in federal government the constitution is supreme. However, in unitary government constitution may be supreme or it may not be supreme. So unitary government the constitution is flexible as well as rigid. However, in federal government constitution is mostly rigid. So in federal government the judiciary is independent. So why is judiciary is independent in federal government? Because whenever there is a fight between state and center or among the states, we are going to go to the court and say and ask for justice. So court is going to treat the union and the state or the dispute between state and state without any bias, and they are going and give a judgment in favor of justice. So under which provision of the constitution do the states go to the Supreme Court under 131? So this article is very, very important. So however, in unitary form of government, judiciary may not be important as as well as important. Okay. Next comes the federal features. What are the federal features of Indian Constitution? Indian Constitution, what federal features do we have? Even though I mentioned Article 1 says India is a union of states. So we have dual polity. What is dual polity? State government, central government. Then we have written constitution. Indian Constitution, written constitution. That's why that's a federal feature. Next, we have division of powers. Division of powers. Administrative powers are divided, financial powers are divided, and also legislative power is divided. Even executive power is divided. I am going to discuss in the future course of the same class. What is financial division, executive division, administrative division. Next comes supremacy of the constitution in India. That is a federal feature. Then we have a rigid constitution. What concept makes the constitution rigid? The concept of basic structure discussed at the beginning of the class make the constitution a rigid constitution. Rigid means it cannot be easily amended. Okay. Next comes independent judiciary. We know Indian judiciary is the most powerful organ. They appoint themselves. They don't care for anybody. They cannot be removed. Even though there is a provision of removal in the constitution, the procedure is so complex, still now not even a single judge of High Court or Supreme Court is removed. That's why there is lack of accountability in the Indian judiciary. So Indian judiciary is considered to be, so it is said that Indian judiciary is also corrupt because there is no accountability, whereas the executive is held accountable by legislature as well as the judiciary, mostly by the people during 5 years, every 5 years election. Okay. Next comes the unitary features. What are the unitary features in Indian Constitution? Strong center. Center can impose emergency. Center can impose precedence rule. So center's direction have to be followed by the states in the in areas relating to union list. So many other things are there. And states not indestructible means states can be changed at the whims and fancies of the center. Like Telangana was formed by at the whim of the central government. So next comes the concept of single constitution. So we have single constitution for the state as well as the center. In USA, the states have a separate constitution and the center has a separate constitution. In India, Jammu and Kashmir had its own constitution. However, in 2019, by abolition of Article 370, Jammu Kashmir was made a union territory and brought into the political framework and constitutional framework of the Indian Constitution. Next comes we have flexibility in the Constitution. That is a unitary feature. So Constitution only the union government can amend. States have no role. And even emergency provision, as I told, state center can impose emergency at its own whims and fancies, subject to certain conditions which we will discuss in the emergency chapter. Single citizenship, unitary feature. So in United States, every state has a citizenship and federation has its own citizenship. However, in India there is only one citizenship. Integrated judiciary. We have district courts, district courts or session courts, and we have High Court, Supreme Court. So only one integrated judicial system is there in India, and subordinate courts here. Subordinate courts. Okay. So the hierarchy goes like this, and also the responsibility goes like this. And we have All India Services. All India Services, which are the three All India Services in India? It is Indian Administrative Service, Indian Police Service, and Indian Forest Service. So these three are the only Indian all India services for which all of us are fighting to or working hard to get into. Okay. Next comes the concept of integrated audit machinery. So that is a unitary feature. The Comptroller and Auditor General (CAG) audits central government, union government's account as well as the state government's account. However, he is appointed mostly by the central government's recommendation. So these are the unitary features. So critical evaluation of the federal feature. So there was many criticisms over a period of time, that is the federation is being misused. So the federal elements are compromised or not respected by the union government. Via what? So we have the concept of President's Rule. Which article? Article 356. Article 356 speaks of the imposition of President Rule. This has been the most controversial article in the Indian Constitution. So in S.R. Bommai case, who is S.R. Bommai? Former Chief Minister of Karnataka. So his son Sri Basuraj Bommai is the present Chief Minister of Karnataka. So S.R. Bommai case 1994, Supreme Court gave certain guidelines saying what are the criterion for the imposition of the President Rule. So now it is impossible to impose President Rule at the whims and fancies, because there is always Supreme Court to which the states can go and plead that center has misused its power. However, every now and then we see the center misusing this power, even though Supreme Court judgment is there in S.R. Bommai case. Okay. Next comes central states relation. How the relationship between the center, that is the Indian government, and the state governments is there. So we divide the relation in various fields, into various fields. So one is the legislative relation, next is the administrative relation, and next comes the financial relation, and one more is the, okay, so executive relation also comes under the administrative relation. Okay, legislative relation. So Article 245 to 255, 245 to 255 speaks of the legislative distribution of power. So also Schedule 7, 7th schedule gives how many lists? 3 lists. Union list, where union government can form the laws. State list, where state government can form the laws. And concurrent list, where both can form the laws. So these are the 3 lists. Okay. So legislative relations. So territorial extent. So central governments, the parliament's law applies to all of India, no exception. Union territories, acquired territories, as well as all the states, central parliament's law gets applied. However, a state's law, suppose Karnataka government forms a law, but that law is not applicable in the state of Tamil Nadu. It is limited to the territory of the Karnataka state. Next comes legislative relations. How is it distributed? I already said we distributed in the 3 lists. So union list has 97 subjects. Presently, how many subjects are there in the union list? Originally it had 97 subjects. Next, state list. Presently it has 52 subjects. Then we have so union list presently has 98 subjects, 98 areas where it can form laws. State list has 52 subjects where it can form laws. Next, Concurrent list has how many subjects? So it has 47 subjects where both the state and union can frame the laws. Okay, this is how the concept of distribution of power is delineated in the Parliament. However, in the concept of Goods and Services Act had a separate provision. 101 Constitutional Amendment Act gave the power of framing financial related legislature to a separate body. Which is that body? Goods and Services Tax Council. So for that separate amendment was carried out. That is 101st Amendment Act. Which article did it impact? Article 246, which gives rise to GST Council. Okay. Next comes parliamentary legislation in the state field. When all can the parliament legislate in the state field? So I already said parliament can only legislate with respect to the subjects or the areas in the union list, 98 subjects. However, in certain special circumstances, Parliament can legislate in the state list also. So that is when Rajya Sabha passes a resolution. You already know Rajya Sabha is a. So those who don't know, please listen. Rajya Sabha is a house of states. That is states representation. Lok Sabha represents the people of India all together, whereas the entities of state have their representation in the Rajya Sabha, which is a permanent house. So Lok Sabha every 5 years gets dissolved, whereas Rajya Sabha is never dissolved. It is similar to the Senate in the United States of America. That is also not subject to dissolution. Okay, coming back to parliamentary legislation in state field. So when Rajya Sabha passes a resolution, so when the resolution is passed by a simple majority, then Parliament can, I already told in the first class what is meant by simple majority. That is majority of the persons present and voting. Okay. When the Rajya Sabha passes the resolution, then thus Parliament can pass a bill with respect to state list. During national emergency, state list, even the Parliament can frame laws whatever it wants. So when states themselves make a request, so a group of states come together and they say, please make a law on our behalf, then Parliament can make a law for those particular states. It does not extend to all the states. Okay, in this direction, there are few acts are passed. That is Wildlife Protection Act was 1972 and Water Protection Act, Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, and Human Organ Transplantation Act was passed by the Parliament based on the request of the states. Next, during President's rule, the states during the President rule. So what is President rule? I am going to discuss in the chapter on emergency. So during President's rule, the state government is carried out by the President, not by the Chief Minister and Governor. Okay. So during President rule, state list, central can legislate. Next comes central's control over state legislation. So does center has any control over state legislation? So I already told state list is exclusive jurisdiction of the state legislative assembly. So here when the state legislative assembly or wherever there is council, state legislative council, if they pass an act, the governor can reserve that act for the assent of the president. So then central power comes into picture. So there are certain areas, certain bills in the state list where prior recommendation of the president is required for introduction in the state assembly. What are those areas? Some areas related to interstate trade. Interstate means among the states. Intrastate means within the state. So, interstate trade, any provision requires the consent of the President before placing it in the state legislative assembly. Okay, we have discussed the legislative relation. Next comes the administrative relations. Administrative relations also means executive relations. What is meant by executive? The government, the ministers, all the IAS, IPS officers, all subordinate officers, all this machinery of the government. So all these employees and secretariats comes under the definition of executive. Okay, also called as administration. So if you are from some district, so you might have heard of the term district administration headed by a district collector. So that is the element of executive. Okay, administrative relations. So distribution of executive powers. So how the executive powers are distributed. So center has executive power. So center has the administrative power in those areas where it can legislate. Where it can legislate? Union list. Union list subjects wherever it can legislate, there the center has executive power. Wherever state can legislate, there they have the executive power. So this is the difference of executive distribution of executive power between the center and the states. Okay, obligation of states and the center. So what do you mean by obligation? States has certain obligation to ensure. So what is the obligation? So state machinery, state government employees has to ensure that parliamentary laws are given effect to. So parliamentary laws are not violated. That has to be taken care by the state administration. Next comes to that state government should ensure that central government's executive power is not impeded. So executive power is not violated. That is also should be taken care by the. So basically one is parliamentary laws is not violated. Second is central's executive power is not violated. Should be taken care by the state governments. Okay. Next comes the center's direction to the states. Can the center give directions to the states? Yes, it can give certain directions to the states. So what are the directions? So means of communication. So military. So suppose there is a Indian army. Indian army is going to build a bridge. So the center can give the direction to the state government, assist or give land to the Indian army in order to build the bridge. So there are many bridges being built in the northeast India for the easy movement of the armed forces for the conflict prone areas. Even in the Jammu and Kashmir, these bridges are being built. Okay. Next comes where are the other areas? So to protect the railways. So you know railways belong to the central list. Railways, Indian railways belong to the central list. Okay. There where the state has to protect the railway infrastructure. So that is the obligation of the states. Next comes the states have to make provision for teaching in mother tongue. So with respect to teaching in mother tongue, which article? Article 350B, important. So if under this article, the center can give directions to the state stating that you have to make provision for teaching in mother tongue of the particular student. Okay. These are some of the directions. Mutual delegation of function. Mutual delegation of function means the state government can delegate its job to the central government. So the central government can delegate its job to the state government. However, before delegating the jobs, each has to take the permission of the other. So center cannot without taking the permission of the state government give its job to the state, or state cannot do vice versa. So they have to take the permission of the president and then delegate the job to the center. Okay, last is the concept of cooperation between center and states. The states and center have to cooperate in order to run this big machinery called India. So how do they cooperate? How do they cooperate? So there are many ways. One is the concept of Interstate Council. Next is the concept of Zonal Council. So also we have Team India under Niti Aayog. These are the various arenas through which the center and the states cooperate. So we have discussed sufficiently what is the administrative relations. Next we have to, okay, there are many other administrative relations which we have to discuss. Okay, next comes the concept of All India Public Service Commission. So Public Service Commission means what? So we have Central Public Service Commission. Which is the Central Public Service Commission? We have UPSC and also Staff Selection Commission. However, UPSC is the main Central Public Service Commission. It is a constitutional authority, whereas SSC is not a constitutional authority. So State Public Service Commission, we have in India Karnataka State Public KPSC. Sorry, I wrote KSPC. Anyhow, KPSC is also not functioning well. We can also afford to make the mistake of writing its name wrong. KPSC, Karnataka Public Service Commission. Okay. Likewise, so here also, so via the KPSC and UPSC also, center and states election can be discussed. How the chairmen and members of the State Public Service Commission, KPSC chairman and members are elected or nominated or appointed. What is the exact phrase? Appointed. They are appointed by the state government. However, they can only be removed by the central government, that is president. President can only remove them. So that is one of the feature. Next comes the concept of All India Services. So All India Services, I already told, we have 3 services. So they are appointed by the central government. However, their transfer, salary, pension, their dismissal, okay, dismissal comes under jurisdiction of again the UPSC and DOPT, central government. However, their transfer, their salary, their pension and their immediate jurisdiction, that is, so immediate control lies with the state government. However, ultimate control lies with the central government. That is the, so what is immediate control? So the state government can suspend a IPS or IAS officer. So that is immediate control. However, dismissal from the service, which is long-term control, lies in the whom? So it lies in DOPT. So DOPT takes the recommendation of UPSC. If UPSC says this guy is a corrupt, so dismiss him. So DOPT sends it to the president. President says this guy doesn't deserve to be in IAS or IPS. Signs a letter. So that guy stands dismissed. So that is immediate and ultimate control. Next comes integrated judicial system. Here also central administrative relations. So the Supreme Court has to deal with both central laws and state laws. However, High Court has to deal with what? State laws and central laws both. However, so integrated judicial system. However, High Court of Karnataka need not implement the laws of Tamil Nadu state in Karnataka. So they have to limit themselves to the laws of state government of Karnataka and also central government laws. So that is one thing. So we have an integrated judicial system. That is, so that is how the central and state relations, administrative relations are carried out through the integrated judicial system. Hope my point is clear. Okay. Next comes relations during emergency. During emergency, the normal relations of transaction between center and states goes topsy-turvy. That is, during normal times, what happens? State is as its own authority, need not listen to the center most of the times, except in areas where it has to receive directions. However, during the emergency, the entire control of the state government can be exercised by the central government, and entire state legislature can be exercised by the parliament. Okay, that is what is meant by center-state relations during emergency. Extra constitutional devices. What are the extra constitutional devices? So, center-state relations, as I said, is also dealt by Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog. So, that is a extra constitutional devices. Okay. So, last but not the least is the financial relations. So, financial relations means what? So, even now that GST has been enacted, we have a integrated taxation system with respect to indirect tax. So, what is indirect tax? So, indirect tax is, suppose you go and buy a biscuit at a shop. So, you don't directly pay tax to the government for that. However, tax is already included in the MRP. So, in MRP, which you are going to pay to the shopkeeper, you are already paying a tax. That tax, the source company is going to deposit to the government. So, that is what is meant by indirect tax. Tax hidden in the products which we are going to buy and utilize. So, direct tax means what? Income tax. Suppose I am teaching here, I am earning a income at a particular forum. Okay. So, that income I have to pay tax to the government based on the tax slab, that is direct tax, and also corporation tax. So, all these corporate companies have to pay tax to the government. What is the corporate tax rate now? So, presently the corporate tax in India is 25%. Okay. Next comes, so the allocation of taxing powers. So, how taxation powers is allocated between the central and state government. So, the parliament has exclusive power of taxation when it comes to union list. Union list, whatever subjects are there, the central government can tax. State list, states can, whatever the elements are there in states, so they can tax. So, to substantiate with an example, so Road Transport Corporation. So, Karnataka has KSRTC. So, suppose you are going to buy a ticket in the KSRTC bus. So, the tax, the particular tax which is embedded in the particular ticket, it goes to the state government. Also, electricity. So, electricity, BESCOM, we derive, Bengaloreans get the current from, the power from BESCOM. So, BESCOM bill every month you are going to pay. So, in that electricity tax goes to the state government because electricity is a state subject. Okay. Next comes the concept of, so likewise, central tax. Central tax means what? So, central list. What are the elements in the central list? Railway ticket. Likewise, railway is a central concept. So, in the central list. So, railway ticket, whatever tax is imposed, it goes to the union government. Also, atomic energy is a central list. So, the power derived out of atomic energy, So that particular power is taxed based on the central tax rate. Okay. So next comes the distribution of tax revenue. How tax revenue is distributed. So in this concept there is a residuary power of taxation. Residuary power means that which does not fall under anything. So that is done by the union, that is the central government. Okay. Also there are certain restrictions. So restrictions placed by the parliament. Parliament placed certain restrictions, certain conditions on the state government to in the area of taxation. So those are in detail, which is not so important from the point of view of exam. However, if you can look at it in Lakshmikant, it's well and good. Distribution of tax revenues. How tax are distributed between center and state. So here there are many tax. So taxes levied by the center but collected and appropriated by the state. Certain taxes are levied by the center. Levied means what? So center imposes a tax. However, state government collects the tax and uses it. It doesn't give anything to the center. So what are those taxes? So what are those taxes? So stamp duties, stamp duties, checks, transfer of shares in these areas. So it is utilized by the central government, collected and appropriated. Next, where is the distribution of tax revenues? Tax levied and collected by the center but assigned to the states. So in certain areas the tax is imposed by the central government and also so that tax is also collected by the center. However, that entire amount goes to the states. So in what are those taxes? What are those taxes? So taxes on purchase of goods in interstate trade and commerce. Interstate trade and commerce, certain taxes are imposed, that is collected by the center but however given to the states. Next comes levy and collection of goods and service tax in the course of interstate trade of commerce, trade and commerce. So here comes the concept of GST. GST article 269A. So here we have state GST, SGST, CGST. So that is what is brought by GST Amendment Act, that is CGST Amendment Act and SGST Amendment Act. So the article with respect to GST is 269A, which is very, very important. Tax levied and collected by the center but distributed between the center and the states. So certain taxes are collected and levied by the center. So both are done by the center, however it is distributed by the between center and states. What are these taxes? The income tax, the corporation tax, all these fall under this. Okay. So on based on what condition is the distribution takes place? We have Finance Commission. Finance Commission recommendation. Which is the latest Finance Commission? 15th Finance Commission. Who is the head of the 15th Finance Commission? It is Shri N.K. Singh. So they have said, N.K. Singh, they have said, so 41% of the center tax revenue has to go to the states. So earlier it was 42, now 41, 1% will go towards Jammu and Kashmir. So Jammu and Kashmir, we are spending lot of money but getting very less returns thanks to the fragile security situation. So now that it has been converted into a union territory, so the security situation is said to be improving. Okay. So there is one more category, that is surcharge. So what is a surcharge? What is the concept of surcharge? So surcharge means, so there is a concept of cess and surcharge. cess and surcharge. So cess means, so for any particular area, for example, for any particular venture, if the center levies certain tax amount, that is called as cess. For example, we have education cess for the benefit of education. We have coal cess, so coal cess is for the reduction of pollution. This amount entirely goes to the the central government. Next comes surcharge. Surcharge can be understood as a tax on tax. Tax on tax. So suppose we have GST. So suppose on what luxury goods. Suppose some luxury goods. So mobile phone. What is the GST? I am not aware of. Suppose on some product the GST is 28%. Based on this, suppose in this 28%, suppose an article costs 100 rupees and the tax is 28%. So 28 rupees is the tax which the central government gets. 28 rupees is the tax. So on this tax amount, one more tax is imposed. Suppose 10%. So 10% surcharge is imposed on this tax. What is 10%? It is 2.8 rupees. That is the surcharge. 2.8 rupees is the surcharge. So this is the concept of surcharge, which is given by Article 271. So last category is the taxes which are collected and retained by the states. States itself will collect the tax and state itself will retain the tax. There are 18 in number, 18 concepts, 18 areas where the states collect the tax and retain it itself. What are these 18 areas? We have land revenue, agricultural income. So most of the states don't tax any agricultural income because agriculture farmers are a very politically sensitive concept, so they don't tax on the agriculture. Land revenue, taxes on lands and buildings, taxes on minerals, taxes on alcohols and liquors, taxes on sale of electricity. All these come under the areas where taxes are imposed by the state, collected by the state, and they use it for themselves. Next comes the concept of distribution of non-tax revenue. So we have non-tax revenues as well. So what are the non-tax revenues? So post and telegraphs. So if you are going to a post office and say I have a post, a speed post to some other state. So that fees, and also railways. Railway, if you are going from place A, you are going from Delhi to Agra. So you are going to buy a ticket, 200 rupees suppose. So it is a non-tax revenue. It is a amount fees levied by the government. How do that distributed between the center and states? That is so in those areas, post, telegraphs, railways, banking, currency, all these areas, non-tax revenue goes entirely to the center. There is no amount allocated to the states. However, there are areas like minerals, irrigation, fisheries, forests. In these areas, the non-tax revenue goes directly to the states. So center cannot claim any share in that particular area. Okay. Next comes the concept of grants in aid to the states. So Article 275. So every time, so there is a flood, there is poverty, there is some drought, there is some situation in a state, center is going to grant some amount to the states. That comes under Article 275. So there are many types of grants. So what I said as Article 275 is a statutory grant. So what is meant by statutory grant? Statutory grant means those grants which are made mandatory by a law. So suppose So we have schedule areas. So to give an example, we have the concept of schedule areas. Schedule areas under Schedule 5, Part 5 and Schedule 5 and Schedule 6. We have schedule areas, and Schedule 6 we have schedule and tribal areas. Schedule areas and schedule tribes and tribal areas are Schedule 5 and Schedule 6. We have these concepts. So here to give the amount, so to distribute the amount to these areas, so the center is mandatorily, so the center has to mandatorily distribute certain, give some grant in aid to these areas. Those are statutorily mandated. What is the statute? What is the statute? The statute is Constitution. So Constitution mandates certain amount to be given to these scheduled areas under Article 275. Next comes the concept of discretionary grants. Discretionary grants means what? So the center can give at its own discretion. So there is no obligation. If the government wants, it can give, or else no. So during floods, during droughts, the center can give amount to the states. That comes under discretionary grants, grounded by Article 282. So moving further, we have the concept of Gst Council. I already gave a brief hint. So which is the article? So the article is 279A. 279A speaks of Gst Council. So the President is empowered to create a Gst Council under Article 278. Is what mandated in the Constitution now. So which is the amendment? 101 amendment. Okay. Okay. So earlier, so there was no concept of Gst Council. Now under Article 279A, the President is empowered to create a Gst Council. So what is the functions of this Gst Council? So it has to recommend with respect to taxes, cesses and levies. So between the center and states. So what are the taxes, cesses and levies levied by the state and center? That has to be with respect to indirect taxes. That has to be said by the Gst Council. So what are the goods that may be subjected to GST? What are the goods that has to be exempted from GST? That should also be said by the Gst Council. Gst Council should also decide the tax slabs. How many tax slabs are there? Right now there are five tax slabs. What are the tax slabs now? So we have 0% to 28%. So there are 5 tax slabs in these areas. Okay. So any other work of the Gst Council? So any special rate during natural disaster, that has to be also be decided by the Gst Council. Next comes the concept of Financial Commission. So I already said which is the article. Article 280 speaks about the Finance Commission. So what is the function of the Finance Commission? So distribution of net proceeds. Net proceed means overall what the government gets, the central government. So how is it distributed between the center and the states? So that is what is directed by the Gst Council. And also grants in aid. I already said 275 and 282 discuss about grants in aid. How this grants in aid, on what principles it should be given, that is also said by the that is also said by the Finance Commission. So also the finances to the local government. Local government means the municipalities and panchayats. So what concept the funding to the municipalities and panchayats should be done, that is also given by the Finance Commission. Protection of the state's interest. So the next concept is protection of state's interest. So it is a general concept which discusses to protect the interest of the states. So I already said in interstate goods, interstate trade and commerce, if a state government has to introduce a bill, so it has to be mandated that the president has to give assent. Only upon his assent the bill can be introduced in the state government. So there are certain other conditions. A bill which imposes or varies any tax duty in which states are interested. So suppose states are interested in any particular tax. So GST tax, states are interested if it has to be. Likewise, any tax, for that matter, states are interested if the center is making any amendment. So president, if the parliament is making any amendment, so the president's consent is important. Likewise, a bill which varies the meaning of agricultural income. So agricultural income is taxed by the whom? State government. If any bill by the center varies the meaning of the agricultural income, then president's consent is important. Next comes the concept of borrowing by the center and the states. During the COVID crisis, we all know that, so the center was directing the states that you have to borrow only this much of your state GDP. So center sets the limit of how much the states can borrow from within the country. States cannot borrow from outside the country. Can the central government borrow outside the country? Yes, it can, but states cannot. Okay, borrowing by the center and the states. So central government borrow within and outside. So state government cannot borrow from outside. So the central government can make loans to any states or give guarantees. So the center itself can make loans to the state government or give guarantees in the market that you to the market, saying that you give someone, the lender give money to the state government and I am going to guarantee you that the state will repay. So these are the concepts relating to borrowing by center and states. Next comes the concept of intergovernmental tax immunities. So central property means what? These railways, so these railways, India post offices, so all these are exempted from state government. The state cannot impose state land revenue or land building revenue on this infrastructure. So state property is also exempted from income of central taxation. Suppose center wants to impose on state property. What are state properties? State government buildings, state buses. Buses fall under state list. So land transport. Buses means land transport. If the center wants to impose taxes on this, they are, because which is under the state list. So that is also prohibited. So center state property taxation from center is also exempted. So next comes the concept of during effect of emergency. So during the emergency, I am going to discuss in later, though the financial distribution of power is changed. So that will discuss during the emergency, while we discuss the concept of emergency. Like after every chapter, I am going to discuss the important articles. So the articles, what are the articles? So distribution of revenue between union and states, between the union government and state government, how the revenue is distributed. So that is discussed between Article 268, from Article 268 until Article 281. So it is given in Lakshmikant, the article numbers. So what are the articles which are important? So Article 268, 268A, 268(9), 268A, 269, 269A, 270, and Article 275, and Article 280, and Article 282. So these are few of the, and also Article 279A, which deals with goods and services tax. So these are few of the articles which are important, which you need to remember, because there can be a direct question in the preliminary examinations of various competitive exams saying, giving the article number, so you will be confused. So next comes the concept of trends in center and state relations. So this is a general area. So general area means, so how the center and state relations post independence has varied. So how it has taken off. So what is the present condition of relationship between the center and the states. So now what are the tension areas? Tension area means conflict areas between the center and the states. So governor, the office of governor has been the major tension area. So the center appoints the governor, who in turn jeopardizes the working of the state government. So that is the major tension area. Next comes the concept of president rule. So the center at its whims and fancies imposes a president rule. That is also a major tension area. Next we have the all India services. All India services is a tension area. Then we have the sharing of finances. Then we have deployment of central forces. What are the central forces? The CRPF, CISF and other, and also NDRF. So deployment of central forces by the, not NDRF. NDRF is a disaster management this thing. So Narcotics Control Bureau, NIA, CBI. So these have been the tension areas between the center and the states. So to harmonize the relationship between to make the relationship good between the center and the states. So there was Administrative Reforms Commission. What is ARC? How many ARCs are being done till today? There are 2 ARCs. First ARC was headed by Sri Morarji Desai. Second ARC was headed by Sri Veerappa Moily in 2008. Second ARC report is very, very important from the perspective of written examination, that is main examination. You can quote the fodder material. So there are many fodder material which you can utilize for the benefit of your ethics paper and also your general studies 2 paper in the UPSC exam. Okay, so I already said first ARC was headed by Sri Morarji Desai, second ARC by Sri Veerappa Moily. So both of them discuss about the center-state relation, how to harmonize them. So majorly it is the first ARC which discusses about center-state relations. Second ARC majorly discusses issues in the administration like corruption, ethics in public life and many other things. So there were various committees with respect to center-state relations. So Rajmannar committee, this committee was appointed by the government of Tamil Nadu. So this Tamil Nadu state has been very vocal when it comes to states individuality, that is center should not encroach upon the area of the state government. So Tamil Nadu has been very vocal that state's identity has to be respected. So because of which this Rajmannar committee was appointed. Its recommendations you can go through in the book, not very important. You can just quote Rajmannar committee has also said this and this in center-state relation. Next comes Anandpur Sahib resolution. So as the name suggests, it is in the state of Punjab. They also wanted to assert the state's identity. So they also said, given this resolution, and also West Bengal. West Bengal also was very vocal when it comes to states individuality. So right now also under chief ministership of Srimati Mamata Banerjee. So it has been very vocal with respect to asserting its identity. Earlier it used to be the communist government. So who was heading the communist government in West Bengal? Please find out. Not so important, maybe out of interest you can find out. So they have also given a memorandum saying state's identity has to be respected. So they have spoken about various areas, President's rule, they have spoken about All India services, they have spoken about imposition of this office of governor and various other things. So when it comes to your competitive exams, more than these three, it is these two commissions which are very, very important. These two are appointed by the central government, union government. So Circaria Commission was appointed in 1983. So it has given various recommendations. So it has in the book it has been printed more than 20 recommendations. Very few of them you can remember, those which are very important. So few of the important ones are, so it said a permanent interstate council has to be established. So 356 President rule has to be imposed as a last resort. So All India services should be further strengthened. That is what the Circaria Commission said. And also it said zonal councils has to be established and armed forces should not be deployed by the center. And also it said governor cannot dismiss the council of ministers in state as long as it commands the majority. Likewise, many other recommendations has been given. So there is no concept for me to discuss here. You can just go through the recommendations. So 20 odd recommendations has been given in Lakshmikant, out of which please remember some 6 to 7 which you can directly quote in the mains examination. Okay, next comes the Punchy Commission. So Punchy Commission, Madan Mohan Punchy ji, former Chief Justice of India, was appointed in 2007. Why I am giving the date? So as to your date, though dates are not very important, you can have a comparative linkage between the time difference between the two commissions. So what did the Punchy Commission say? So the recommendation of Punchy Commission has been given elaborately in Lakshmikant ji's book. You can go through the recommendation. They speak about various things. So they speak about the working arrangement between union and states. What is the working arrangement between the governments of states and the union? And also they speak about the jurisdiction of center and states. They speak about the district level planning. They speak about state level planning. They speak about Finance Commission and various other things. So what are the recommendations? Lakshmikant has given more than 38 recommendations. If you by heart 38 recommendation, it's not very important. High probability of you going mad. Rather than that, out of 38, at least remember 10 very important recommendations. So few of them I am going to read it out for you. So with respect to concurrent list, so concurrent list means list 3. So there has to be a broad agreement while the center forms laws. Though it has a exceeding authority when it comes to concurrent list, the center has to take the states on board before forming a law. Next comes union should be extremely restrained in matters assigned to the states. So the parliament should not breach the boundary of its law making power. So next comes the concept of selection of governor. So it says that so the governor should be an eminent person in some walk of life. He should be a person from outside the state, which is generally followed nowadays, and also he should be a detached figure from local government. I mean, he should be detached from the local politics. So he should not be taken part in the local politics in the recent past or in the older past as well. So he should be a person of great reputation. That is what is said by Punchy Commission. So also it says that so when it comes to state legislature, so when the president returns a bill, so suppose see, it goes like this: state government passes a law, the governor reserves the law for the assent of the president. So only when president assents this law, in special cases, this law will become an act. Okay. So suppose that law is returned to the state government. So state government has to repass it and send it to the president within 6 months. So what Punchy Commission says, the same 6 months limit should be applied on president as well. So president cannot sit on the laws passed by the state government. There should be a strict time limit within which president has to send the state laws back. And also they have spoken variously on the role of governor in the appointment of chief minister. So it gives a detailed guidelines. So the governor should explore the coalition of parties in appointing the chief minister. So he should explore whether there was any pre-poll alliance and so many other things before appointing a chief minister. And also they say the governor should have right to sanction for prosecution of state minister against the council of ministers. Suppose a minister is involved in corruption, so council of ministers says no, you are not giving sanction for him to be prosecuted by the court or the central agencies like CBI. So governor can exercise his discretion in these areas according to Punchy Commission. So likewise he also says new all India services should be appointed in the areas of health, education, engineering, judiciary. So all India Judicial Service, AIJS, very, very important, always in the news in the recent times. So that is also said by Punchy Commission. Likewise, so this Punchy Commission gives lot of recommendations which are very important. So next we will move further to the next chapter, which is Interstate Relation. So we have spoken about center-state relation. So now we will keep the center aside. So we have so many states. We have 28 states and 8 union territories. So union territories are not important because it falls under center. We will remove this out of picture. In the 28 states, what is the relationship between these states? How relationship is being conducted? What is the role of center in this, even though we are speaking about interstate relations? So in India, each state is as big as a nation in Europe. So Uttar Pradesh, if it is projected as a nation, it comes in the top 20 nations of the world. So much population, such a vast area. Okay, so interstate relation. The first area is, so you already know what is meant by interstate relations. So the term itself is self-explanatory. So first we will discuss interstate water disputes. So famous being the Kaveri water dispute. Always Karnataka and Tamil Nadu fight. Their buses will be touched in Karnataka. Karnataka's buses will be touched in Tamil Nadu. So always there is a violence. So where this particular provision is dealt in Constitution as well. Which particular article deals in the Constitution? Article 262 of the Constitution provides adjudication for the interstate disputes. So interstate disputes, water disputes, specifically water disputes, you have to quote Article 262, very, very important article. Okay. So interstate water disputes. So what does the article say? Parliament can provide for a interstate water dispute tribunal. So interstate water dispute tribunal, adjudication of any dispute between the states in the use of water in the interstate river or river valley. River or river valley, any dispute. So Parliament can provide a mechanism. Parliament has provided the mechanism of tribunals. Okay. Next concept is Parliament can also say that this adjudication process is outside the jurisdiction of Supreme Court. Supreme Court or any other court cannot exercise jurisdiction. However, this takes place only when Parliament provides for it, empowered by Article 262. So, under this, the Parliament has enacted two laws, very, very important laws. You have to note down or at least listen carefully. So, the two laws are River Boards Act. So, first act is River Boards Act. However, no river board has been constituted till date under the act. So next is Interstate Water Dispute Act. Interstate Water Dispute Act 1956. So many tribunals have been constituted under the Interstate River Water Dispute Act. So few of the tribunals are Krishna Water Dispute Tribunal, constituted in 1969, Narmada Water Dispute Tribunal 1969, Kaveri Dispute Tribunal 1990, Mahadai Water Dispute Tribunal recent 2010. Always this Goa and Karnataka and Maharashtra fight in this. Mahanadi for Dispute Tribunal 2018. So we as a part of current affairs, I already told I am going to discuss a little bit of current affairs as well while discussing the static part. We have Interstate River Water Dispute Tribunal Act, Interstate River Water Dispute Tribunal Act 2019, very, very important. It gives provision for a single bench of a river tribunal which is going to handle all the disputes. So earlier what used to happen, each dispute one tribunal. Now we have a single bench which is going to discuss and deliberate upon all the water disputes. Okay. So next comes the concept of interstate councils. I already told Circaria Commission made the recommendation of establishment of interstate council. However, interstate council as a constitutional provision in Article 263. 263 speaks about interstate council. So this article speaks about establishment of interstate council. So what these councils do? They say inquiring into advising upon disputes which may arise between the states. So any states between any dispute, this council will adjudicate. Adjudicate means what? Adjudicate means they are going to conduct the negotiations and solve the disputes. Next comes investigation and discussing subjects in which center and states have a common interest. Okay. And also make recommendation on any of the disputes. These are few of the functions of the interstate council. So not only interstate council, single council, we have center under this act 2003. We have constituted many councils. We have constituted Central Council of Health and Family Welfare, Central Council of Local Government, and 4 regional councils for sale tax, North, East, West and South. Okay. Establishment of particular interstate council. So I told many councils have been formed like Central Council of Health and Family Welfare, but particular name, particular council as interstate council was established post Sarkaria recommendation. The Janata government headed by Shri V.P. Singh established the council. It was, the composition is Prime Minister is the chairman, Chief Ministers of all the states, Chief Ministers of Union Territories with legislatures, and also administrators of union territories and many other, even central cabinet ministers, they also form part of this interstate council. So this council does many things like investigation of disputes, give recommendations and many other things. Okay, along with this there is a secretariat and standing committee. So there is a standing committee on standing committee of interstate council headed by central home minister. Okay, next comes the concept of public acts, records and judicial proceedings. What does it mean? Suppose in Karnataka government forms a act, so enacts a act. I already said this act doesn't have any validity, or that cannot be enforced, or that cannot be implemented by the executive of the, that need not be is the right word, that need not be implemented by the government of Maharashtra or Tamil Nadu. So but Karnataka government must enforce that act. However, this act of Karnataka government should be respected by all the states. What do you mean by respected? So not only the act, the records of Karnataka government and also judicial proceedings of the Karnataka High Court must be respected throughout India. So what is meant by respected? So full faith and credit has to be given throughout the territory of India. So to this act of this particular government. So why it has to be given? Because see, some person conducts a business in Karnataka, he cheats the government or the public. So this chit fund, suppose one person conducts a chit fund business which is prohibited by Karnataka State Chit Fund Prohibition Act. Suppose let us say there is such an act. So there is an act in Kerala government regarding the chit funds, regulation of Kerala State Regulation of Chit Funds Act. Okay. Likewise, let us say Karnataka government has a chit fund act. So one person conducts a fake chit fund business and runs away and hides in Odisha. So if Karnataka government asks the Odisha government to surrender, to arrest that person, request the Odisha government to arrest that particular person because he has committed a crime which is illegal as per Karnataka Government Act, that particular person should be arrested by the Odisha government. That is what is meant by respecting the act, record or judicial proceedings of a particular state in some other state. Okay. Next comes the concept of interstate trade and commerce. So we have after GST, it has been revolutionized, that interstate trade and commerce has become a revolutionary concept. Okay, with respect to taxation, we have e-way bill. So the movement of goods has become very easy, and logistics is also very easy. So anti-profiting bill is also there, that has also made interstate trade easy. So interstate trade and commerce. So which article deals with interstate trade and commerce? So article 301 to 307, not very important from examination perspective, but have a brief idea. You need not go in detail with respect to these articles. Okay. So with respect to interstate trade and commerce, so Parliament can impose restrictions of freedom of trade, interstate trade, intercourse between the state in the public interest. So in public interest, so public interest means suppose there are drugs, narcotic drugs, so that can be prohibited by the union government, union parliament, saying in the interstate commerce that cannot be traded. That is said by the, if this parliament says that can be prohibited. So even the state government can impose restriction on interstate commerce, interstate trade and commerce, but that has to be reasonable. So and also the restriction has to be reasonable. That is the first condition. Second condition is the state should not discriminate between among the states. So suppose Karnataka imposes a restriction on some particular product trade coming from Tamil Nadu. The same restriction has to be implemented or enforced on that particular product if it comes from Maharashtra also, if it comes from Telangana also, if it comes from Andhra Pradesh also. So there should be no discrimination, and also the restriction on the product should be reasonable. There should not be unreasonable restrictions. So next comes the concept of zonal councils. So already said there are zonal councils. So who heads these zonal councils? So is there any constitutional backing for these zonal councils? So we don't have any constitutional backing for zonal councils. What we have? We have statutory backing. What is the statutory backing? State Reorganization Act 1956. State Reorganization Act 1956, via which many states were formed in India. State Reorganization Act 1956. Based on whose recommendation this act was enacted? What was the constitutional amendment? Constitutional amendment is 7th Constitutional Amendment. Sorry. Recommendation based on Fazl Ali Commission. So I have discussed it in the first class on citizenship. Sorry, on states, evolution of states in India. So zonal councils. Who heads the zonal council? Home Minister of the central government heads the zonal council. Chief Minister of all the states in the zone. Chief Minister of all the states in the zone are members. So, and also 2 other ministers from the state can be members. So zonal councils, what is the use of zonal councils? To achieve emotional integration of the country. So India is a multicultural country. So we have various race, religion, castes. We have various languages, various cultures, various dishes, various kinds of dressing, various kinds of people, various level of education, various religions, so belonging to various climates. So there is India is a multicultural, pluralistic country. So in order to achieve a emotional integration, to build a country not only physically but emotionally. So this particular councils are important. So state consciousness. So any separatism is tried to be curbed by this interstate council. It also helps in enabling ease of trade and other development projects. We have how many councils do we have? We have 5 councils, 5 plus 1. So we have Northern Zonal Council headquartered in New Delhi, Central Zonal Council Allahabad, Eastern Zonal Council Kolkata, Western Zonal Council Mumbai, Southern Zonal Council Chennai. So these are the zonal councils. So we have Northeast, also we have Northeast Zonal Councils. So related articles, which is a ritual after every chapter. So we have articles starting 261. So we have article 261, which is not so important, but article 262 and 263 are important. Then comes article from 301 to 307, not so important. So next we will move to the next chapter, emergency. So very, very important. Direct questions can be asked from the chapter on emergency. Okay. So what is emergency? So right now the country is proceeding in a normal fashion. There is no abnormalcy. So the states are functioning normally, the society is functioning normally, the economy is functioning normally, and there is no threats, there is no violence. So there are minimal violence here and there, which is taken care by the law and order machinery. However, overall there is no threat to the functioning of the country, right? So if there is any threat, if the normal functioning is hampered, so to a great extent, then we consider such a situation is apt for invoking emergency. So what are the articles? So the articles from 352 to 360. 352 to 360 speaks on emergency. What is the part? The part is 18. Part 18 of the Constitution. The part number is not so important. However, the emergency articles are important. So what is the rationale behind imposing including the provisions of emergency in the Indian Constitution? So there was various debate. So what did Dr. Ambedkar ji, who is the chief architect of Indian Constitution and also the chairman of drafting committee, say about the inclusion of emergency provisions in Constitution? So here is the words of Dr. Ambedkar. All federal systems, including America, are placed in a tight mold of federalism. No matter what the circumstances, it cannot change its form and shape. It can never be unitary. On the other hand, the Constitution of India can be both unitary as a federal according to the requirements of time and circumstances. Normal times, it is framed to work as a federal system, but in times of an emergency, it is designed to make it work as though it was a unitary system. So these are the words said by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. What did Ambedkar ji mean to say here? So we are generally working as a federal system. I already said what do you mean by federation. So during normal times we are a federation. However, during extraordinary times there is a necessity for the country to work in a unitary fashion. That is why we have the provision of emergency. So we have three types of emergency. One is national emergency, second one is state emergency, which is also called as president rule or constitutional emergency. Third, we have the concept of financial emergency. So first comes the concept of national emergency. So under Article 352. So what is national emergency all about? So what are the grounds of declaration? So national emergency can be declared on three grounds. One is war, second is external aggression, third is armed rebellion. So you all know what is meant by war. External aggression means what? Suppose Pakistan or China conducts or invades into India, they aggress against Indian boundaries. That can be considered as external emergency. During 1962, when China aggressed against India, there was a declaration of emergency. Similarly, in 1965, during the war with Pakistan. Okay. So also we have armed rebellion. Armed rebellion means within the boundary of India there is a rebellion. So if there is a condition of civil war satisfying the condition of armed rebellion, there should be use of arms in that rebellion, then only an emergency can be declared. Earlier, before 44th Amendment Act, during the tenure of Morarji Desai ji, what there was a condition called internal disturbance. So under internal disturbance, emergency was imposed by Srimati Indira Gandhi. However, this provision was deleted by Sri Morarji Desai government in 44th Amendment Act and said that no, you cannot impose based on internal disturbance, but only based on armed rebellion. That was included in the 44th Amendment Act. Okay, so also 38th Amendment Act. 38th Amendment Act 1975. It was said that emergency is immune from judicial review. So if emergency is imposed, judiciary cannot do anything. That was said by 35th Amendment Act. 38th Amendment Act. However, the amendment number is not important. However, this was overruled in Minerva Mills case. In Minerva Mills case, they said that no imposition of emergency can be subjected to judicial review. Judiciary can revoke the emergency. So parliamentary approval and duration. So Parliament has to approve the emergency. So earlier what used to happen, within imposition of emergency, within 2 months, they have to, the houses of both the Parliament have to approve the proclamation of emergency. So when it comes to emergency, the word called proclamation is very, very important. You cannot say emergency was enacted. So proclamation of emergency is the word. So originally the 2 months was allowed for approval by the Parliament. However, later on 44th Amendment Act, the approval of Parliament was reduced to 1 month. So the approval has to be done by 2/3 majority, that is special majority. I already told you on the chapter of amendment what is meant by special majority. Special majority with special majority, parliamentary approval has to be done for national emergency within 1 month. That is 2/3 of majority plus total majority and 2/3 majority. Both has to be satisfied in order to emergency to continue. Once the Parliament approves the imposition of emergency, the emergency stands valid for 6 months at a time. Okay. So earlier what was the time period? So earlier there was no time period. Once approved by the Parliament, there was no time period. It can be extended indefinitely. However, in 44th Amendment Act, it made so that once the approval is done, the emergency can run for 6 months. Post 6 months, it has to be again. The Parliament has to convene and pass a bill or resolution for continuance of emergency. Okay. So earlier, one more thing is, earlier there was no requirement of special majority within 2 months. If simple majority approves, the simple majority means what? Those who present and voting. Those, suppose 300 members are present, if 150 vote for approval of the resolution, emergency can be extended indefinitely. Now it is special majority. Revocation of proclamation. So how proclamation of emergency can be revoked? So revocation can be done by 2 ways. One, the president can himself take back the proclamation of emergency. So the other way is the Parliament, the Lok Sabha so in particular can pass a resolution with simple majority. You know what is simple majority? So with simple majority, if the Lok Sabha passes a resolution with simple majority, then Parliament, then the emergency stands revoked. Okay. So what are the effects of national emergency? So there are many effects. So effects on central state relations. So what are the effect between center and state relations? So what is the effect on executive relation? During a national emergency, the executive power of center extends to the executive power of state as well. Center can give any direction to state in any matter. Okay, that is the executive relation. Next comes legislative relation. Legislative relation means what? So the Parliament can enact laws even in the state subject list. So state subject list, any matter is there, so the Parliament can enact a law during emergency. So does this law valid forever? No, this law is valid only after 6 months. So once the emergency ceases to operate, within 6 months the law also ceases to operate. So this is what is meant by legislative effect during national emergency. The law is valid only for 6 months post the emergency ends. Next comes the financial relation. So the president, here what will happen? The president can modify the distribution of power. So Finance Commission says distribution of power during emergency, this distribution can be varied by the president. Okay, next comes effect on the life of Lok Sabha and state legislative assembly. So what will happen on the effect of Lok Sabha and state legislative assembly? So life of Lok Sabha can be extended beyond 5 years. So beyond its normal term for 1 year at a time. So the normal term is 5 years. Beyond 5 years, the length of Lok Sabha can be extended. During 1975 emergency, Lok Sabha was extended twice. So twice, 2 years, the government had extended the tenure of Lok Sabha. Okay. So, however, this extension cannot continue beyond 6 months once the emergency ceases. So, the Lok Sabha can be extended 1 year at a time. The tenure of Lok Sabha can be extended 1 year at a time. However, once the emergency ceases to operate, so emergency ends within 6 months, the Lok Sabha will also end. So that extension cannot be granted forever. Okay. Next comes effect on fundamental rights. This is a most important part. So what is the effect on fundamental rights? What is the effect on fundamental rights? So fundamental rights, not all fundamental rights stand suspended once the emergency is invoked. However, Article 19, 6 acts. We have discussed this during the concept of fundamental rights. Article 19 immediately, once the emergency is invoked, Article 19 immediately stands suspended. So you cannot go to court saying my freedom of speech and expression is threatened, because once emergency is there, Article 19 is not there. Okay. So that is with respect to Article 19. So suspension of other fundamental rights. So what about other fundamental rights? With respect to other fundamental rights, President has to mention what are the rights which cannot be executed. Suppose President mentions Article 25 cannot have effect during the emergency. So that particular act, that particular fundamental rights stand suspended. Then what is the difference between this and that? Article 19 and that particular suspension. So here this is a automatic suspension. President's approval, President's resolution or rule is not required to suspend Article 19. It is a automatical suspension. However, the suspension of any other fundamental right requires President's consent. However, the Article 20 and 21 cannot be suspended even by the President. This caveat was added by caveat was added by 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. So next we have the concept of distinction between Article 358 and 359. So 358, what it says about Article 19, suspension automatically. However, so 350, it is confined only to Article 19, whereas 359 deals with any other article. So it deals with any other fundamental right whose enactment is suspended by presidential order. If President says, suppose Article 30 cannot be suspended, cannot be enforced, so that particular article stands suspended. Okay. Similarly, so this is with respect to Article 19, this is with respect to any other fundamental right. So declarations made so far. So there have been three national emergencies till now. What were the three? So one is during 1962 Chinese external aggression, not war. So we did not fight a war actually. So China came, invaded from Arunachal Pradesh and also western sector. They unilaterally withdrew. India did not fight a war with China. It was an external incursion, external aggression. So 1971 Bangladesh War of Independence, there was a external aggression by Pakistan. So Pakistan War, 1971 Bangladesh War of Liberation, there was a external aggression. Next comes 1975 National Emergency, internal disturbance. So internal disturbance, there was a invoked by Srimati Indira Gandhi ji. Okay. Due to this, she lost election later on, because of which Janata Party headed by Morarji Desai came to power. There is one more change by 44th Amendment Act. Earlier what used to happen? So the Prime Minister can alone recommend the President saying that please impose the emergency, and President will impose the emergency. Whereas now by 44th Amendment Act, the Cabinet should give in writing to the President that please impose emergency. So President alone cannot by his dictatorship say the President please impose emergency. No, now Cabinet has to give it in writing. Why this was made by 44th Amendment? So you know that in 1975 Indira Gandhi ji overnight said to the President impose emergency, and the President imposed the emergency. Who was the President at that time? That is for you to find out. So I can also say, but what is the work you are going to do? Okay. So now we have a safeguard which says that Cabinet has to give it in writing. Okay. So this is all about national emergency. If you remember this much, it is more than sufficient. Tomorrow I am going to discuss with President rule, which is another type of emergency under Article 356. So this is all for today. Thank you so much for your patience. Hope you found the class knowledgeable. Actually, it is very, very important from the polity perspective. Thank you so much and have a great time. Take care of yourself and Jai Hind. Namaste.